I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. Let's talk about House 4. This is a box set that I bought. I've said this in all my reviews, but this is a box set I bought specifically to acquire 3 and 4 because I'm a completist. I hadn't seen 3 and 4 in a long time, so I barely remembered them. Having now seen 3 and 4, from a pure rewatchability standpoint, I only needed the American release. But because I am a person who needs to have every film in a series, I am still glad that I have this. This is not a film I need to revisit. Part 3 is not a film that I need to revisit. I probably won't ever revisit them. But, so this is a Sean S. Cunningham production yet again. It has the same composer. I was wrong in my last review. I said that he probably wouldn't come back because this was a lower budget, but I was wrong, and I can admit when I'm wrong. Kane Hodder plays a very small mini role in this. So you do have a lot of alum, and then William Katt returns as Roger Cobb. Now, let's get into this movie. I will first say, fuck this movie. Fuck it hard. Now, do I think this is a horrendous, awful, just dreadful film? No, I don't. I think that it has enough good, and what I mean good, I mean like a blending of this is actually okay here, these little itty bitty segments, and then all the other good that's in this film, good, is laughable, like get fucking drunk with your friends and MST3K this thing. Like there's some really hilarious bad. That's good. You know, a lot of the times I watch bad movies that are just bad. And there's no making fun of them. There's no fun to be had. A lot of the bad in this is enough to be good and have fun with it. It's so fucking silly and ridiculous. Now, why I say fuck this movie. I honestly just don't understand the thought process here. Like, this is the only film that has any connection to the first one. And when I say connection, I use that loosely as all hell. The first movie features William Katt as Roger Cobb. This movie features William Katt as Roger Cobb. That is the only connection. And when I say that is the only connection, I literally mean Roger Cobb's character has been thrown into this movie completely ignoring the events of part 1. And that is where the confusion comes in. There's a lot of things that confuse me about this movie, but that's the main fucking thing I have a confusion with. Why would you get writers together and a director and all this stuff and get William Katt to come back and have the original producer and the composer and all these and not have it connect to the first one? Roger Cobb in this movie has a different wife and a daughter. And it's not like you can say, well, maybe he married into another, married a woman, she had a kid. No, it shows her as a baby with him. So either they're saying that Roger Cobb has 2 families, or they're just completely disregarding it. And that's where the confusion comes in here. Because it's like, okay, you don't want to use, like, you couldn't get the same actors back. You couldn't get the wife back. You could say that they got divorced and he has a new wife and they've been together long enough that she loves the kid now like her own. Okay, that's easy. Why make it a daughter? That's where I'm really confused in this. Just cast a boy, call him the name of the kid in the first one, and that's it. I mean, I don't understand. I'm so fucking confused by this. Like, and they're grown up anyways. The chick in this movie, the daughter is like 14 or 15. The kid in the first one's like, I don't know, 10, 8, somewhere in that area. So he goes through the entire first movie. And it's not like his character in the first one is disconnected from his family and they're just like a background note, like a footnote. His kid is like the whole primary reason for the entire film. He's trying to get his son back. And when he does, it's like the big climax of the film. Like, his life is now big. He's got his wife back. He's got his kid back. His life is perfect. And They ignore this in the second and the third, which is fine. I mean, that's whatever. And then in the fourth one, they're like, let's bring it back to the original story. Let's bring back William Katt. Why completely ignore and completely change? I just don't get it. I'm really just... I don't know many series that have done this. I know Halloween is ignored the events of 4 through 6 with 7 and 8, and now they're about to do it again, and Laurie's about to get like her third kid in an alternate dimension. She seems to be a hussy in any dimension that she's in. Just because you have a kid doesn't make you a hussy. Just being funny. But I'm so fucking confused by that. Anyway, let's get into the movie. And now you know that I'm unhappy with this. Really quick, this will probably be for like 2 people who ever watch this video. We'll see. But I'm a hardcore Star Wars fan. I read all of the outside expanded universe stuff. Watch all the cartoon shows and everything. And there are 2 characters in this movie that are named after expanded universe type characters. Ezra and Mr. Bones. And I just found that to be very odd. Like, I'm sure it's a coincidence, but it was just like, those are pretty specific names. Anyway, getting into this film, let's talk about it. I want to talk about some of the good, the good or the bad good. Number 1, as I've said with 1 and 2, not 3, because 3 has nothing to do with a house at all. The house in House 1, 2, and now 4 all look awesome. I just love the look of the house. They got a really cool house. So any house movie that has to do with an actual house, they really did a really good job of this house. I really liked the look of it altogether. I really enjoyed the relationship between the mother and the daughter. I thought it was very sweet and genuine. Maybe almost a little too family-friendly sweet, like a Lifetime movie or something, an ABC family movie at points, but I enjoyed it. I just don't think that it tonally fit the film if they're trying to do a horror movie, but this movie has a lot of tonal issues, and I'll get into those in a minute. The whole singing pizza man, I was singing the song at the beginning, is just hilarious to me. I like the jingle. I can't imagine being that pizza guy and having to go door to door and sing to everybody like that with the whole fucking... it's like a full minute and a half long. It's ridiculous. And then her pizza coming to life, and that's where Kane Hodder is. He's the pizza. And she's like fighting with the pizza, and marinara is flying everywhere instead of blood. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And then I liked that the hitmen that come to burn down her house at the very end end up seeing themselves like as snakes and bugs. Like, that shit got me. I was laughing. Like, he turns around and this guy's just wearing a full fucking snake mask and the bug mask, and they start shooting each other. And that's another thing I will get into, is that I like that this house uses confusion to get people to harm one another, thinking that they're protecting themselves from some kind of evil. Now, that's not consistent in this, because there's a scene where the mother grabs a knife and she starts stabbing at her daughter, and she's stabbing the bed like 30 fucking times, and feathers are flying everywhere and whatnot. And then they cut back and she just still has the knife raised above her head, and she's about to stab, but she hasn't yet. So it's not consistent with the rest of the movie, where those guys shot each other like 15 times. When they come out of it, they had shot each other 15 times. So her stabbing was taken away. And as I said, that's just not consistent. But I do like that the house does use confusion tactics to get people to do things, and that they don't want to do, and to either get rid of each other or expose themselves, as the main villain guy at the end is in the back of a police truck, and he thinks he's talking to the midget gangster boss. And that will lead me into my weirds and my negatives, because there is going to be kind of a separation, but because I don't know where to put the weirds. That's like the good bads. They're interesting. And I think that whole midget boss is where this, or little person, if I'm being offensive, that's where this movie took a turn, tonally. Like, it was kind of being this sweet haunted house film. It almost felt like a wannabe Poltergeist, where it was like almost family friendly, but it was being serious. I mean, the film was mostly serious up until that point, and then when he gets to that guy's, it's like a toxic waste dump. It looks like something out of Men at Work with Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, where they have like the big barrels of toxic waste. And it's just like this factory of people with toxic waste, like going around, moving it around. I don't know where they're moving it to, since they don't seem to have a place to take it yet. That's what they're waiting on. That's the whole plot of this film. And then they have some like hot receptionist who's just sitting at the front of the door, and she has a hard hat on, and she takes him into this like gangster room with, as they said, a little person fucking Godfather type character with all these bodyguards standing around him for no reason. That part really is where the film shifted from like, it was kind of serious to what the fuck is going on now? And pretty much from that point on, it got silly. Now, as to where the first film tried to, blend and weave in comedy and horror, it did throughout. Like, it just kept kind of, shifting from comedy, horror, and it really blended well. And the second one went all comedy. And the third one went all serious. And this one was like serious half, goofy second half. So you have like 4 different kinds of films here. And I think that this one proves that you can't shift in the middle of a film like this. It just doesn't work. Now, what I have said in the last 3 reviews that the transfer on House 1 through 3 was excellent. And I remember saying that I was looking at the title menu of the footage from this one, saying it was good. That's just not the case here. The title menu must have had the best shots up on screen, because a lot of this film did not look good. The transfer was not good. And I'm sure that's just because of the film stock that they had. But it doesn't look that great. So this transfer isn't awesome. Another thing that pisses me off, and this is something franchises do. The Hitcher 2 did this. Some other franchises have done this, but that one's most notably. I don't like when a franchise brings back a main character from a previous installment that survived a horrific ordeal, that he went through all this shit and he came out on top, and then you bring him back for a sequel just to kill them. Friday the 13th did that a lot, actually. They did that in the beginning of a decent amount of their, earlier installments, where the person who survived the first night died in the opening of the, in the next one, and so on. And it's like, as to where those didn't really bother me as much, because I guess the quality of the film was good. I really like the Friday the 13th sequels. Something like House 4, which is unnecessary. Hitcher 2, better watch out, is unnecessary. You can't just kill the main character. Like, it just takes away from that victorious moment at the end of the first one, or whatever one they're in, and you're robbing them of that. Like, in my mind, Roger Cobb, and it will still be that way because this really has no connection to the first one, but you can't bring back a character like that and then kill them in a shitty sequel that they're barely in. If it was some big glorious thing, and they're in it the whole film, and then they end up dying at the end, that's okay. You can bring back a character for that. But if you're just going to have like a 5-minute cameo, basically, and they die in that, like they did in these films that I just mentioned, no, that's not acceptable to me. You are going to bring back a big character from a franchise, you better give them a fucking role, and a good one, and it better be a damn good reason why they die. Now, the production value on this film is made for TV look to it. Not great. I have to point out that this house is not handicap accessible. So when this daughter is in a wheelchair, I'm just looking around like, how'd she get upstairs with her wheelchair? How'd she get up the front porch without like a ramp? So I'm sitting there just like looking around the house like, this would not pass codes with her being in a wheelchair. Something most people probably wouldn't. And this film is interesting. This is something else I really want to talk about. This film is very confusing on what the house is. Because in the first two films, the house is more, it's not a haunted house. It's like the house is possessed and creatures are coming out of alternate dimensions. That's the first two movies. This film plays more like a haunted house. It kind of reminds me of Amityville 3, which is fucking dreadful. But there's this like thing in the basement. It becomes a plaque, but at the end it becomes like a big well, water shooting out of it, which I guess is like holy water because it fixes the girl's legs and makes her able to walk, which then kind of negates the whole thing of Roger Cobb sending back the wife to help, because not only did the water put out the fire, but it gave the girl the ability to walk. So this is where I'm confused, because this movie is not only trying to be a haunted house movie, which the first two houses aren't, but it's also like, I don't know if the house is evil or if it's trying to be helpful. That's where I'm confused with this movie too, in addition to the Roger Cobb thing. Like, it's like the house is trying to kill them, but then it's trying to help them. So, and you could say, the house was haunted previously to Roger's death. Well, there's no evidence of that. The house is fine until Roger's death. And when Roger's death happens, that is when the house then becomes haunted. Now, they were only there for a short period of time, to my knowledge, so maybe the haunting in the house wasn't a present yet, and it would have been if they had stayed there longer. But putting that aside, the only evidence I have to go off of is the house wasn't haunted before Roger's death. And when he talks to the expert on this matter, Ezra, he tells her that Roger's spirit is caught in the house because he has pretty much unresolved business, which is pretty much, what every movie says. And it's like, well, then why is Roger, trying to hurt them? What's up with the killer pizza? What's up with, the bloody shower? What's up with... There's certain things that happen in this movie that are so inconsistent. But then you have the savior coming through, and you have him turning her dog lamp, which is really funny, by the way, into an actual dog with a lampshade still on its head. And you have him tricking the bad guys into killing themselves and confessing to their crimes. And you have a whole bunch of things. But the movie is so inconsistent on what it's trying to say. Is this house haunted by a demon spirit? Is it haunted by Roger? And if so, then why is Roger trying to hurt them? So, that is very odd to me. Another thing that... This is a very small nitpick, but it happens in so many films I can't help but mention it. Like, whenever a house is on fire, it's like... The main thing that kills you in a house fire, usually people who die in a house fire die because of smoke inhalation. The fire never even touches them while they're alive. They are in their sleep, and they die of smoke inhalation. Smoke is so thick in a fire that you cannot breathe. You cannot see. And in very rare movies do you actually see this portrayed well. And this is yet another movie where, hey, at least the girl coughed like once or twice. But there's no reason why the fire department could have run in and helped them. Like, they get there way before she collapses and she's in Roger's, afterlife vision. And then she gets up and she goes and she gets her daughter and the well breaks. And where are the firemen at? You can visibly see outside that not all of the rooms are on fire. That only like the right side of the house appears to be on fire. And this whole left side of the house seems to be fine. Why didn't they run in? Why didn't the FBI chick run in to help? Like... Yes, it's hard to nitpick stupid movies like this, but when you're watching it, it's just so blatant that you're like, why? Nothing is consistent in this film. I did really like the mom. I did really like the daughter. I thought they were very sweet, likable characters. And I cared about what happened to them. I did care if the little wheelchair girl would die and stuff like that. But, and what is up with this house? Like, yet again, it's like, you couldn't have written something that said, like, they tore down the rest of the neighborhood and this was the only house left standing and this is the house from the first one. I mean, it doesn't even have to be the same house. Halloween 5 proves that. They used a Gothic mansion. And we all know that ain't the Myers house. But we accept it. I don't accept it. Fuck that. But I did accept it when I was watching the movie. Like, okay, that's the Myers house. But in this one, it's just like, well, here's a house and it's the families. And it's like, that ain't the house. That ain't where the house was. That ain't, like, and they make no mention of the first film at all. Like, I've had a past here. Nothing. The first film isn't mentioned in the slightest. I just don't get it. All right, let me peruse my notes really quick to make sure I got everything that I wanted. Oh, the midget thing. Getting back, or the little person, sorry. That scene is so fucking ridiculous. He's like infected by the toxic waste that he has, so they use like, it literally says like a phlegmomatic on the side. Sounds like something out of Rocko's Modern Life. And he's just sitting there and they put a fucking thing in his mouth and it pumps the sludge out of him that he's coughing up, and then they make the other guy drink it. That was disgusting. It was hilarious. But what the fuck? Oh, God. And also, seriously, the shower scene. I mean, how many times can this be done? And I don't even just mean the blood. I just mean, how many horror movies now are we at where they show a girl in the shower? I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to see a chick naked in the shower fucking as many times as I can. But it's just such a cliche thing to do at this point. It's just like, really? A shower scene again? Like, how many of these are there? Fuck. So, anyway, I am done with the House series. I probably won't do a series for a couple more weeks. I want to knock out a lot of recent releases in horror, so I'm going to take a little break from this, but this was fun. I'm going to give some thought, but I'd definitely like to hear what series you'd like me to cover. I own almost every one of them, so I have access to tons and tons of them. So, anyway, till next time, I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man.